Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that have shaped their lives, inviting us all to reflect and grow together. Today we're joined by Ed Parco, a seasoned expert in the mortgage industry and the founder of Lending for Living. With over 25 years of experience, Ed is passionate about guiding others through the journey of home ownership, helping them build personal wealth along the way. As a proud veteran of the United States Navy, he brings a unique perspective to his work, empowering clients to achieve their financial dreams. Let's dive into Ed's world and discover the quote that has inspired him. Tell us your name. And your favorite quote.
Yeah.
Not avoiding it.
Actually, I made a shirt out of that one.
Oh, okay. So, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well,
it's your
yeah.
favorite
Because,
quote.
I mean, I do. Yeah. Well, I do an internet. So I'm Ed Parco, and the quote you just stated is, I do an Edison podcast, which is about your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats. And so it's basically about failures. And a lot of us try not to fail, but we have to fail in order to learn. And if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, and you have to push the envelopes. And I think a lot of people don't do that, and they're afraid to fail, and you can't be.
Yeah.
I do a radio show on Wednesday. I do, 2 more podcasts on Tuesdays and Thursdays called Aces 53. Then I also do a Helping the Brave podcast, which is for veterans once we take the uniform off. So if you look, I do about 13 episodes a week of at least a half hour each, if not to an hour. So when you ask me quotes and what I say so much stuff. You're asking me to remember exactly, but the quotes on failure that I gave you were about things that I came across, and when I talk to people on my Inner Edison podcast, which is your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats, those are just quotes that I came across when we were talking to people because I think they're so important. They're not like a Zig Ziglar quote, which is that I know because I know Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar, do you know who Zig Ziglar is?
Yeah.
Okay, the sales guy. So one of his favorite quotes is, treat your significant other like a thoroughbred and you'll never have a nag. And a lot of people, he said so many quotes that's my favorite one because it just means that if you treat the person that's the most important to you so well, you'll never have a problem with them. So the quotes on failure I gave you was about the fact that, I own a mortgage company. And in the time that I've been doing mortgages in the last 27 years, 2 years ago, when we had an increase in interest rates to almost 5% increase in a 6-month period, which was the most we've ever had in history, that devastated my company. And from that, I was very angry for about a year because I couldn't believe that somebody elected a president that did what they did. But then I got to a point where I realized that did this happen to me or did this happen for me? And so I started looking at things differently, and I could see how it was happening for me to figure some other stuff out. And so since then, I've been doing a lot of other stuff that has changed the way I do everything.
Yeah. And
Did I answer your?
I noticed that you grew up fixing your grandfather's diary.
I grew up on my grandfather's use of dairy.
Yeah,
right?
dairy. Yeah, dairy.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, my dad died of hairy cell leukemia, which was from Agent Orange from the Vietnam. And after that, I ended up working at my grandfather's dairy through the weekends and on summers. And I learned that, one, I didn't want to be a dairyman and milk cows for a living, but it was some of the most hardest work I ever did. And I also learned so much on how to fix about anything and everything that was out there. So I can, if we break down, I can fix it if something else happens. And it's just from spending the time. But from tragedy always is an opportunity. And that's what you have to remember. So just because something happened to you one way doesn't mean that changes everything. It's an opportunity for something else. And I think we forget to look at the opportunities that come from all these different failures.
Well, yeah, success is built on failure, not avoiding it. Right.
Yeah, because you have, right? I mean, that's my take, but this is your podcast. What if your podcast failed? What would you do next?
It's a good thing you asked that question.
How would you?
Good thing you asked that question because I was going to ask that. What does it mean for a podcast to fail?
Well, I did a talk. It was called the 10-23 Rule of Podcasting. And basically what I came up with is 80% of all podcasts fail by the 10th episode. The other 20%, out of that, another percentage of it, let's just say half of them fail by the 23rd episode. So if you can make it past the 23rd episode, you're going to be a successful podcast. And if you want to make a really good podcast these days, do a daily podcast. because there's a lot less. Plus, you build a lot more momentum a lot faster. Because I actually interviewed a guy the other day, and he has a daily history kind of podcast. It's not even like this type of podcast where we're talking back and forth. It's he just reads, it's like a history thing, like on certain things. He's got 1.5 million downloads now an episode. He's making a killing, and it's a podcast that it takes him 15 minutes a day to do, and he's got thousands of them done, and sometimes he redoes the same one over again. What I'm getting at is you just have to consistency on everything and anything. It will make you successful.
Yeah. Because sometimes people judge or measure their projects based on what other people are measuring the project to be. I'll give an example. You give an example of a podcast. And let's say I wanted to start a podcast to document kind of my life story, right? For my kids, something like that, right? Now, as the creator of that podcast, with that purpose, right? It doesn't matter if the show gets 10 downloads or not, right? It's just like, it means that, okay, they can go and listen to and then get it. But you see, the strange thing is this. Sometimes people don't even know why they're doing something. So it's hard to tell if something is a success or a failure if you don't know the purpose you set forth to do the project in the first place, right? I've talked to podcast hosts who they started their podcast because people asked them a couple of questions about marketing. And so they wanted to do a series for people to go they can always refer people to listen. So it wasn't meant that, I'm going to do this show and then I'm going to keep doing this show. This was the idea. I'm just going to make a series and then I'm going to make it public. And whoever asks me a question, I'm just going to direct it to them. For that circumstance, that would be a success because they did the project. But then if I try to compare it to the purpose of another guy who wants to make gazillions of dollars, that's a failure.
Well, it just depends on like you said, what you're looking to do. What's your plan? What are you looking to, what have you set up? But somebody who wants to do a podcast that's answering some questions and maybe 10 episodes, is that really a podcast or is that really a YouTube channel that should be done? You know what I mean? In questions, because again, it has to do with what is your definition of success? That is what you have to look at. It's years ago, long time ago, they would talk about keeping up with the Joneses, and that's when you're worried about your neighbors and you're driving the same car as them, that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean anything. The question is, what's success to you? You need to define what success is. And I think a lot of us look to other people about it. Prime example, my daughter's is getting divorced. She's in a good relationship now, but then she's making comments about how people are saying how happy she looks on Facebook and everywhere else. Who gives a about what other people think? And that's the problem, is they worry about other people's, acknowledgement to feel good about themselves. And that's the worst thing you can do. You need to get to a point where you don't care. What I mean by you don't care is you're doing it because of the reason you're doing it, not what other people think. Hate always comes from below, not from above.
Yeah. You see, earlier on, yeah, exactly. And it's not necessarily that hate comes from above or outside. It's more like we've heard these voices over the course of our life. That voice has become internalized in our head. So even before the people talk, or even if they even talk in real life, we've heard their voices and we've listened to it in our head.
Yeah. Well, I would tell your mom to be quiet. You're laughing because that's where most of us come from our childhood, or one of the parents in our childhood who talked to us the most and told us stuff. And again, you have to get to a point where you're okay with who you are. And I think that's different these days for somebody like your age and somebody like my age. I did it. We had different things. I'm Generation X. I started doing a print on demand stuff for people, and I have a store and everything. And one of the things that a lot of people talk about Generation X, how we were raised on hose water and neglect. And then we have like my kids who are millennials who got everything. And again, it just depends on how you look at it, right? Because millennials could look at, well, I was raised this way, that's why I'm this way, and I need to change and whatever. And I can say as a Gen X, I was raised this way, and that's why I'm this way. Or I was raised this way. And again, you just have to get to a point where, what do you want out of life? What does success mean to you? That's what you have to define. That's it. Once you know what that is, then that's how you can attack it. But you can't go off of people showing them that they're leaning up against a Ferrari that's not theirs. They just leased it for the picture. A yacht that's not theirs that they just leased because they were on it. You can't go off of that stuff. And too many people do. And that's, too many people want to be an influencer, but why?
Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
And the sad part is I have a huge following on TikTok, so someone could say I'm an influencer, but that's not what I'm there for. I'm there just to give information. That's my goal, is information to help people get into homes and other stuff. That has nothing to do with how many people like my stuff.
Yeah.
Because back to your podcast thing, because I know people who have, they do a podcast to build their business. So they do the podcast for their clients and for their people that they are trying to sell to. And for them, I think most people should start a podcast to build their business. That's it. That's the only reason to start the podcast. If you're starting the podcast, unless you want to do something for your kids and talk about your life and all that stuff, do that. But don't make it a podcast. Just make it recordings for them that they could go to your YouTube channel and watch when you're not here. And but you do what you want. The reason you do a podcast, you want to become the authority in your industry, podcast, documentary, book, whatever you can get on. That's how you build the success in your industry.
Yeah. You talked about in your quote that success is built on failure, not avoiding it. What does it mean to avoid failure? Like, what does it mean to avoid it? So it means you don't even participate in the game.
Yeah, exactly. You go up to bat and you don't swing because you're afraid you're going to miss it. But you just did. Or golfing, same thing. You just walk up there and you don't do the swing because you're going to miss the ball, and now you just failed. You didn't take that risk. You didn't take that chance to see if it's something you can do.
Yeah. Well, what about those people? What about those people who happen to be in the arena, they take the swing, but then they learn the wrong lessons.
They do what?
They participate in the game, but they learn the wrong lesson. I could give an example of what I mean. Okay. Let me give you an example so that you understand what I mean. Now we have two we have twins. Well, how do I say it? We have twins, like two kids. They're twins, right? They had an alcoholic father. Now one turns out to be really exceptional in society, making something out of their life for themselves. Another turned out to be an alcoholic. No, like the father. And then they asked the first kid, why is your life like this? You're doing well for yourself and all that, right? And the kid was like, because my dad was an alcoholic. Every time I saw him, I vowed in my life that I was never going to be like him. And then they met the other child, and I was like, how come you became an alcoholic? And the guy was like, yeah, it's pretty obvious. My dad was an alcoholic. And it's the same thing that I kind of like happened and influenced them. But they got different lessons from it. So a wrong lesson is a lesson that works against you, not for you.
There isn't two twins who came out the exact same way. There's always two twins that come out totally different. And you have three kids, not twins, older one, middle one, and bottom one, baby one. They all are going to be totally different, think totally different things. The middle one's going to think, oh, I was neglected. You didn't take care of me. My mom and dad didn't love me. The older one's going to think that the baby got everything because he was the last one or she was the last one, whatever. That's just human nature, but that's not business. I'm talking failure in business. I mean, that's what I look at is business. But we all have to look at internally who we are and what we know. And that takes some, hey, I became this way because my dad was this way. Well, I have two sisters, an older one and a younger one. Younger one didn't amount to anything, and she was the last one at home, had everything. My older sister did a lot, and I did more than both of them because I was the middle child and I was the guy. Does that mean that I'm better than them? No, that's just how I took it. And again, I was dirt road after my dad died of hairy cell leukemia. I was dirt road poor. Do you know what dirt road poor is? You know what I mean by that? You live on a dirt road instead of a regular road. Yeah, and that's only one way to explain that. I could either do Joe Dirt poor or Dirt Road poor. And again, I could have came out and been an alcoholic and whatever and did nothing, but that was my take. We all have that drive inside of us. The question is, why didn't it get taken care of for the one twin? And that's human nature. We can't control that, but what we can control is what we're trying to do for business and what we're trying to do for that type of stuff. We're going to have failure in business.
It's a good thing
but
you mentioned business, right? And I will give an example. Let's say podcasting, right?
Right. Well, you're telling the story. I'm listening.
When I started my podcast, right? The internet over here was really terrible. I would interview guests. When I say something, they would hear the thing 5 minutes after. I'm not kidding, right? 5 minutes after. And then they would try to respond. Like they would try to respond. The internet quality, the video quality was terrible. The sound quality was terrible. And it was really hard. But I really wanted to do podcast. Like it was one of the things that I made up my mind. It wasn't a matter of, oh, let's figure it out. Let's see. Like this is what I wanted to do. Now, at that point in time, I could say, okay, well, podcasting is not for me. I don't really think this is going to work. But then I was like, okay, wait, this problem is not peculiar. How do I deal with it? How do I fix it? And I was like, okay, do audio only, stop video because the bandwidth is higher. Use that, right? Now, the reason why I'm saying this is with failure, sometimes you might do a business venture. It doesn't work out, right? Now, you could learn a lesson that, I didn't know how to manage the money well. That's why it didn't work out. Or you could also say that, the system, it does not work. The stuff is terrible. My employee, they're the worst, right? There are certain lessons you could take out of an occurrence that they're not helping you. They're actually like limiting you. I don't know if it makes sense. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, well, basically what I'm saying is you got to take responsibility for your own actions. That's what I'm saying. Basically, that's what you're asking is why it's my employees suck. Well, yeah, all employees suck. There's nothing you can do about that. You can just hire better down the road and hire. If you're the owner of the business, you probably suck. Excuse my language. Suck at hiring people because that's not your job. What do you do best is what you should only do best. Hire everybody else to take over those jobs you can't do best. And that's in the beginning, you don't have that choice or that luxury, but we are not the best. I can tell you this for a fact. I'm not the best person to hire people because that's not my job. Talking to people, that's my job. I can do that very well. Writing, not my job. I can't write very well, but I can talk. And so that's what I do. And when we're on this, you learn certain things that you don't say and you don't do in certain things. Because people ask me on my podcast, do you take out the ums and the ahs? I'm like, no, you just have to learn not to do them. Because I don't want to take them out. I don't want to edit my podcast that much. I don't want to have a jerkiness like that when someone took or ah out and people are like, what did they take out? And you follow what I'm getting at, you're a podcast person. And like you said, when you podcast, you get back. I can't go back and watch my first ones. I can't go back and listen to my radio shows from 2018 because I was horrible, but I learned a lot. And I did 10,000 hours of podcasting and other stuff. And how do you get good at things? You spend a lot of time and you do a lot of volume on it. It's actors, actresses, they work on their skill constantly. And that's what you have to do is this stuff, especially podcasting and talking to people. You need to interview as many people as you possibly can so you can get good at it.
Yeah.
And the one thing people ask me all the time, what's the questions going to be? I don't know because I have not interviewed you yet. I don't do questions. I don't send out questions and go these are the questions I'm going to ask you. No, it's supposed to be a podcast where you say something, I say something. You, as the host, I'm just going to throw it back on you. And when I'm a host, whatever my guest says, I listen to, I keep going. And then if I want to go back, I go back to what they said, 5 minutes ago or 6 minutes ago. And then half the time they're like, you actually listened to me? I'm like, yeah, that's my job.
In half of the conversations we have in real life, like I can't think of a time where I actually sent my friends a list of questions they should answer when we're talking in order for us to have a conversation. Like, it just flows.
When you're in school, when you're asking some girl out, you give her a list of questions. All right, are you seeing anybody? Do you have a boyfriend?
Yeah. And we, how it turns out, it's robotic and it doesn't probably last more than 5 minutes or so. Yeah, but I think if you are curious enough and the guest is willing to, like, it takes two to tango. Can have a conversation.
The best podcasters are the ones who get in trouble by their wife. What I mean by that, you're at a dinner party, you're sitting at a table and you're asking these questions and your wife's grabbing your leg to tell you to shut up. Those are the best podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm one of those. Yeah. Because I get in trouble all the time. My wife's like, squeeze my leg. Don't ask. I want to know why people voted a certain way, why they think a certain way, and why they do this. Because that's how I understand people and human nature.
Yeah.
That's being curious. You have to be curious to be a podcaster, and you have to be curious to be an interviewee, to interview somebody. And you just have to do it and over again. Back to your thing about failure. Failure is going to happen. The question is, what are you going to do with it? What did you learn from it?
Yeah. I think when you see failure as, oh, I'm building my rep, it's way different the way I approach it. You're like, oh, the first interview, I totally blew it up. Okay, yeah, I mean, I'll do 10 more. I should be better. And then the next 10 years, it was very terrible. What did I learn from it? Okay, we'll do 20 more. And sometimes people do 2-3 interviews and they're like, I suck at this, I'm terrible. And I'm like, you should do 50, 200.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing radio since 2018. That's a long time. And I've been podcasting since 2020, right? Doing different episodes. And I've gotten way better now because I don't even care what I say or whatever comes out of my mouth. What I mean by that is I'm going to make mistakes. You're going to say something wrong. Oh, well, move on. How do you recover from that? And people want to hear mistakes. People don't want to edit it out. Now, there's some podcasts that are perfectly cleaned and everything else. Well, that's different. Those are actors and actresses that want that done. Most people who listen to podcasts want to know it's really you and not AI.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for reminding us and for sharing the quotes with us, Ed.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Finally, where can listeners learn more about you and what you do?
I'm Ed Parco everywhere. EDPARCAUT. That's .com, or that's Ed Parco at Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it. That's where I'm at under that name.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Relatable Wisdom. If you found something meaningful in this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Every little bit keeps the conversations going. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep growing.